The last time I saw my father alive, he squeezed my hand and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. Now, sitting in Clara's law office, watching my stepbrothers smirk at each other across the mahogany table, I wish I'd leaned in closer. I'm Bethany, and this is the story of how I learned that revenge is best served through a speaker system. As per the final wishes of Clyde Roberts, Clara adjusted her reading glasses, her voice steady and professional. The distribution of assets is as follows. I gripped the armrests of my chair, trying to focus on the words rather than Rory's expensive cologne that filled the room like a toxic cloud. He'd shown up in a designer suit, while Deacon wore what looked like a carefully cultivated casual morning outfit that would photograph well for his Instagram followers. To my daughter Bethany, Clara continued, I leave the sum of $174,000. My heart stopped. That was more than enough to cover the student loans I'd put on hold to care for him during his final months. More than enough to make up for the promotion I'd passed up to be his nurse. However, Clara's pause felt like a knife twist. This sum is only to be released upon the written agreement of both Rory and Deacon Roberts. The room went silent. Then Rory actually laughed, and leaned back in his chair. Well, that's not happening. Excuse me? I managed to say. You heard her, Deacon chimed in, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. Dad must have had his reasons. My stepmother, Ingrid, sat in the corner, her face a mask of practiced concern. Perhaps your father worried about your financial responsibility, dear. Financial responsibility? The words came out sharper than I intended. I spent the last 8 months caring for him while you all were too busy to visit. I changed his bandages, managed his medications, held his hand through chemotherapy. Oh, please, Rory rolled his eyes. You walked out on Dad years ago. A few months of playing nurse doesn't make up for that. I never walked out, I said, my voice shaking. You and your mother pushed me out. There's a difference. Clara cleared her throat. There are other matters to discuss. The cabin property. We'll take that, Deacon interrupted. Obviously. Actually, Clara adjusted her glasses again. The cabin remains in a temporary trust. Bethany has rights to reside there until the estate is fully settled. Rory's face darkened. That's our family cabin. It was my family's cabin before your mother ever set foot in it, I shot back. The reading continued, but I barely heard it. My mind was stuck on Dad's final days, how he'd insisted on telling me stories about the cabin, about hidden treasures and family secrets. I'd thought it was the medication making him ramble, but now... This meeting is concluded, Clara announced, gathering her papers. I'll need all parties to sign these preliminary documents. As we filed out of the office, Rory brushed past me, deliberately knocking into my shoulder. I stumbled, catching myself against the wall. Watch yourself, sis, he sneered. Deacon was already on his phone, probably crafting the perfect social media post about supporting family in difficult times. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. I waited until everyone else had left before approaching Clara. There has to be something else. Dad wouldn't just... I can only execute the will as written, she said softly. But Bethany? She glanced at the door to ensure we were alone. Your father was very specific about you having access to the cabin during the settlement period. Very specific. I drove back to the cabin in a daze, my phone buzzing with a text as I pulled into the gravel driveway. It was from Rory. It's fun watching you squirm. Standing on the porch, key in hand, I remembered all the summers spent here before Ingrid came into our lives, before Mom died, before everything changed. Dad's voice echoed in my memory, all those recent rambling stories about hidden things, about truth coming to light. I pushed open the heavy wooden door, breathing in the familiar scent of pine and old books. Dad had been trying to tell me something in those final days, something important. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Deacon, sending a photo of himself and Rory toasting with what I recognized as Dad's precious vintage whiskey collection. The caption read, "Family legacy lives on." Stepbrothers. I walked to Dad's study, where he'd spent so many hours during his final months, insisting on sitting in his old leather chair, even when he could barely hold himself upright. He'd been so adamant about keeping me away from his desk drawer, even during his worst days. Now, standing in the empty room, I realized Dad hadn't been rambling at all. He'd been leaving me a trail of breadcrumbs. Dad's desk drawer stuck at first, the wood swollen from years of mountain humidity. When it finally gave way, I found exactly what I expected. Nothing. At least nothing obvious. "Think, Bethany," I muttered, running my fingers along the drawer's edges. "Where would you hide something if you knew people would look?" The bottom of the drawer felt different, slightly raised. I pressed down, and a soft click rewarded my effort. A false bottom. Classic Dad. Inside lay an old tape recorder, the kind he'd used for dictating patient notes back when he still practiced medicine. Next to it sat 3 unmarked cassettes. "Found you," I whispered, lifting out the recorder. Its familiar weight brought back memories of sitting in his office as a kid, playing secretary while he worked. The first tape produced only static. The second was blank. But the third— "Testing! Testing!" Dad's voice crackled through the speaker, weak but clear. "Bethany, if you're listening to this—" A loud bang from the front door made me jump. The recorder clattered to the floor. "Hello? Anyone home?" Jesse's voice called out, the groundskeeper. I quickly gathered the tapes and shoved them in my pocket. "In here," I called back, trying to steady my voice. Jesse appeared in the doorway, his weathered face creased with concern. "Heard about the will reading. Thought I might find you here. News travels fast." "Small town," he shrugged. "Your father, he talked about you a lot. Near the end." I picked up the recorder from the floor. "Did he ever mention this? That old thing? Used it constantly his last few weeks. Wouldn't let anyone near it." Jesse leaned against the door frame. "Look, there's something you should know. Those brothers of yours were here this morning before the reading, searching for something." My hand tightened around the recorder. "Did they find anything?" "Not that I saw, but they're coming back tomorrow to collect family heirlooms." He made air quotes with his fingers. "Just thought you should know." After Jesse left, I locked myself in Dad's study with the recorder. The tape quality was poor, but I could make out fragments. And the money? It's hers. Only hers. Don't trust them. The test will show their true nature. Oh, in the cabin, evidence of everything. My phone rang, startling me. Nora's name flashed on the screen. My old best friend from high school. We'd lost touch years ago, but she'd sent a sympathy card last week. "Beth, I just heard what happened at the reading. Are you okay?" "Honestly? No." My voice cracked. "But I think Dad left me something. A way to fight back." "Those jerks," Nora growled. "I never trusted them. Listen, I'm in town for the week. Need backup?" "Actually," I glanced at the recorder. "Know anything about cleaning up old audio recordings?" "My cousin works in sound engineering. Give me an hour." While waiting for Nora, I searched the study methodically. In the bookshelf, I found a photo album I'd never seen before. Inside were pictures of Mom and Dad at the cabin, long before Ingrid. Notes in Mom's handwriting marked each photo. First summer here, the day we got the keys, our special place. The cabin had been their dream, their love story, and now Rory and Deacon wanted to claim it as their birthright. My phone buzzed with a text from Deacon. "Hope you're not too attached to Dad's study. We're redecorating tomorrow." Fresh start. Attached was a photo of furniture catalogs spread across their kitchen table. I was about to respond when another voice cut through the static of the third tape, clearer this time. "Bethany, my girl, if you're listening to this, then they've shown their true colors. The will, it's a test. I knew they'd fail, but I needed proof, needed everyone to see." A coughing fit interrupted his words, followed by the sound of shuffling papers. "Look behind the painting in my room, the one of the cabin. Everything you need. It's all there, but be careful. Your stepmother, she knows something's hidden. She just doesn't know what. The tape clicked to a stop. I practically ran to his bedroom. The painting hung exactly where it always had, a simple watercolor of the cabin in summer. Behind it, the wall looked normal, but there it was, a small safe, painted to match the wall perfectly. My hands shook as I tried the combination I knew Dad used for everything important, Mom's birthday. It worked. Inside lay a stack of papers, letters, and another tape. On top was a note in Dad's shaky handwriting. My dearest Bethany, they think they've won. Let them think that. You always were smarter than they gave you credit for. Everything you need is here. Just remember what I taught you. Sometimes justice needs a little patience. Love, Dad. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I saw Rory's expensive SUV pulling up the driveway. Time to find out exactly what Dad had left me to work with. I barely had time to close the safe and rehang the painting before Rory's heavy footsteps echoed through the cabin. Shoving the papers under my shirt, I slipped into the adjacent bathroom just as he reached the top of the stairs. "Hello, little sister?" His voice dripped with mock sweetness. "Just picking up some things Dad promised me." I flushed the toilet and stepped out, meeting his startled face. "Funny, I don't remember him promising you anything." "Jesus, you scared me." He recovered quickly, smirking. "Didn't realize you'd still be here. Thought you'd have run away by now. Again." "I never ran away, Rory. You know that." Right. You were finding yourself, while Dad was heartbroken." "Heartbroken?" I laughed bitterly. "He was heartbroken when your mother convinced him I shouldn't come home for Christmas. Heartbroken when you told him I was too busy to answer his calls, while you were deleting his messages from my phone." Rory's face darkened. "Careful, Beth. You're starting to sound paranoid." "Am I? Want to hear Dad's opinion on that?" His eyes flickered to the recorder still in my hand. "What's that?" "Nothing important. Just Dad's last words about what really happened in this family." The color drained from his face. "You're bluffing. Want to bet your inheritance on that?" He took a step toward me, but voices downstairs made him pause. Deacon called up, "Rory, Mom's here." "This isn't over," Rory hissed, then plastered on a smile and headed downstairs. I waited until I heard their voices in the kitchen before slipping out the back door. Nora was waiting in her car around the corner, just as we'd planned. "Got everything?" she asked as I slid into the passenger seat. "More than I expected." I pulled out the papers and the new tape. Dad left a trail, a big one. We drove to Nora's cousin's studio, a converted garage filled with sound equipment. While he worked on cleaning up the recordings, Nora and I spread the papers across a table. "Look at this," I said, holding up a letter. "It's dated 3 weeks before he died." The letter was addressed to Clara, his lawyer. "I'm setting a trap, and I know they'll fall into it. The condition in the will, requiring both boys to agree, it's not about protecting the money, it's about exposing their true nature. Everything is documented, everything is recorded. When they fail this test, as I know they will, the truth comes out." "Your dad was playing chess while they were playing checkers," Nora whispered. "Beth," Nora's cousin called from his equipment, "you need to hear this." The cleaned-up recording was crystal clear now. Dad's voice filled the room. "This is my final testament, supplementary to my legal will. The money I've left to Bethany, $174,000, represents everything her mother left for her education. Money that Ingrid convinced me to reinvest for the family. Money that went instead to Rory's failed business ventures and Deacon's social media career." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He knew?" The recording continued. "The condition requiring my son's approval is a test of character. One I pray they pass, but know they won't. Their greed, their entitlement, it's my fault. I let their mother poison this family, but no more." "We need to take this to Clara," Nora said. "Not yet," I replied, remembering Dad's note about patience. "First, we need the whole story." We spent hours going through everything. Letters revealed how Ingrid had systematically isolated me after Mom died. Bank statements showed how my college fund had been drained. Photos documented family events I'd supposedly declined to attend, events I'd never even known about. My phone buzzed. A social media notification. Deacon had posted a photo of himself in Dad's study, caption reading, "Back where we belong, Chac Air Club." "They're going to try to force you out," Nora said, reading over my shoulder. "Let them try." I gathered the papers and recordings. Dad knew exactly what he was doing. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about justice. "What's your next move?" I pulled out Dad's final note again. "Sometimes justice needs a little patience." "First, we let them think they've won," I said. "Let them get comfortable, confident. Then, I held up the cleaned recording. "Then we let Dad have the last word." Driving back to the cabin that evening, I found Rory and Deacon's cars still parked outside. Through the window, I could see them in Dad's study, already rearranging furniture, laughing, taking selfies. My phone buzzed again. A text from Clara. "Need to see you tomorrow. Important." I smiled, thinking of the recording in my bag. "Perfect timing, Dad," I whispered. "Perfect timing." Clara's office felt colder than usual as she reviewed the recording and documents spread across her desk. Her expression remained carefully neutral, but her fingers drummed steadily on the mahogany surface, a tell I'd noticed during the will reading. "This is concerning," she finally said, removing her glasses, "but inadmissible without witnesses." Dad was the witness, I argued. He recorded everything. Recordings can be disputed, especially when made during illness. She held up her hand as I started to protest. "I believe you, Bethany, but belief isn't enough in legal proceedings." A knock at the door interrupted us. Clara's assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Rory and Mr. Deacon are here. They're insisting on their appointment now." "We're not finished," Clara started, but I was already gathering my things. "It's fine," I said. "I know what I need to do." I slipped out the back door just as my stepbrothers' voices filled the reception area. In the parking lot, Nora waited in her car, engine running. "Well?" she asked as I slid in. "We need more, something they can't dispute." "Then let's give them rope to hang themselves." Nora pulled out her phone. "Look what your darling brother posted an hour ago." It was a video. Me at the cabin yesterday, but edited to show only fragments of our confrontation. The caption read, "When family shows their true colors, sad to see grief affect people this way." Family first, sure, mental health awareness. "They're trying to make me look unstable," I said, watching the carefully cut clips that made my defensive posture seem aggressive, my words seem irrational. "Exactly. So let's use that." We drove to the local coffee shop where Deacon held his weekly influencer meetups. Through the window, we could see him holding court, his phone propped up for optimal live streaming angles. "Ready?" Nora asked, adjusting her hidden camera. I nodded, squaring my shoulders before walking in. The bell above the door chimed. Deacon's face lit up with performative concern as his followers turned to watch. "Bethany, we were just talking about you," he said loudly, phone still recording. "We're so worried." "Are you?" I kept my voice steady. "Worried enough to post edited videos of me online?" "I just wanted to show people what we're dealing with," he said smoothly. "Help is available, you know." "Help? Like when you helped spend my college fund?" His smile flickered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Should we call Dad's investment broker? I'm sure he remembers who authorized those transfers." Deacon's live stream followers were commenting rapidly now. He glanced nervously at his phone. "You're confused," he said, but his voice had lost its confident edge. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "Why? Afraid your followers might learn the truth?" He ended the live stream abruptly. "You're making a scene." "No, I'm making a point. Every move you make against me, every manipulative post, every edited video, it all goes in the file. And trust me, the file is already pretty thick." As if on cue, Nora appeared beside me, casually holding up her phone. Deacon's eyes widened as he realized she'd been recording. You can't what? Document your harassment? Pretty sure I can. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Deacon? Dad recorded everything. Everything. We were almost to the door when Jesse the groundskeeper stepped in. His eyes met mine, then darted meaningfully toward the back of the shop. Miss Bethany, he said loudly enough for others to hear, your father told me to give you something, if things went this way. Deacon was on his feet now, trying to appear casual as he moved closer. Jesse pulled an envelope from his jacket. He said, give this to Beth when the boys show their true colors. I took the envelope, feeling Deacon's eyes burning into my back. Inside were letters, dozens of them, in Dad's handwriting, all addressed to me, all returned unopened. He tried to reach you, Jesse said quietly. Every week, they sent them all back marked, refused. My hands shook as I read the postmarks, dates spanning years, holidays, birthdays, every attempt at contact I'd never known about. Deacon's face had gone pale. His followers were still commenting on his abruptly ended live stream, asking questions he couldn't answer. Outside, Nora stopped recording and squeezed my arm. You okay? I nodded, clutching the letters. We need to show these to Clara. Already sent her the new video, she grinned. Your brother's quite the performer when he thinks he's in control. My phone buzzed, a text from Rory. You're playing a dangerous game, little sister. I showed it to Nora, who laughed. He has no idea, does he? No, I smiled, thinking of Dad's words about patience and justice. But he's about to find out. The letters trembled in my hands as I sat in Dad's study, reading through years of attempted connection. Each one revealed a different piece of the puzzle I'd never known existed. My dearest Beth, one began, dated 3 Christmases ago. They tell me you're too busy to come home, that you've moved on. But I saw your hospital staff photo online. You're working Christmas Eve, aren't you? Just like your mother used to. A knock at the door startled me. Through the window I saw Ingrid's silver Mercedes. Bethany? Her voice carried that false sweetness I'd grown to hate. We need to talk, dear. I tucked the letters into my bag and opened the door. She breezed past me, designer perfume mixing with the cabin's pine scent. My boys are quite upset, she said, examining her manicure. This little performance of yours needs to stop. Performance? I held up one of Dad's returned letters. Like pretending these never existed? Her perfectly composed face flickered for just a moment. Where did you get those? Dad kept copies of everything. I pulled out the tape recorder. Want to hear what he had to say about you? Don't be dramatic. She perched on the edge of Dad's leather chair. Your father was very ill, confused, anything he said or recorded. Was perfectly lucid, I cut in, especially the part about my college fund. Mom's money. Ingrid's smile turned sharp. Investments sometimes fail, dear. That's business. Funny how they only failed in my account, while Rory got his startup money and Deacon got his influencer launch fund. You're being paranoid. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Just like your mother used to get. Don't you dare talk about my mother. Or what? Her mask slipped completely now. You'll play your little tapes? Show your letters? No court will grant you anything without those signatures. Your father tried to play judge from his deathbed. He failed. I smiled, remembering Dad's words about patience. You're right. I'll let Dad speak for himself. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means Clara has called a formal family meeting. Tomorrow morning. Attendance mandatory. You think you're so clever, she hissed. Just like your father, always planning, always scheming. Look where it got him. It got him exactly where he needed to be, I replied, with me, at the end, while you were all too busy to visit. A car door slammed outside. Rory's voice carried through the window. Mom, you in there? Ingrid composed herself instantly, mask sliding back into place. Think carefully about tomorrow, Bethany. Family secrets should stay in the family. Oh, I agree. I held up my phone, recording light blinking. That's why I'm keeping this conversation just between us, for now. Her face went white as she realized I'd recorded everything. She turned on her heel and rushed out, nearly colliding with Rory in the doorway. Everything okay, Mom? He asked, glaring at me. Fine, darling, just fine. She hurried to her car. Rory lingered, filling the door frame. Tomorrow's meeting won't go how you think. No? I played the recording of Ingrid's threats. Sure about that? You little... He stepped forward, fists clenched. Careful! Nora's voice came from behind him. She stood on the porch, phone raised. That would make great footage. Rory backed away, pointing at me. This isn't over. Actually, I said, it's almost finished. After they left, Nora helped me gather everything for tomorrow. The letters, the recordings, the bank statements. We laid them out in order, building the story Dad had left behind. Look at this, Nora said, holding up a photo. It showed Dad in his study, much younger, with me on his lap. We were both laughing at something off camera. Mom took that, I said softly, right before she got sick. He kept it in his desk all these years. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Everything ready for tomorrow? I looked at the evidence spread before me, years of manipulation and lies laid bare. Yes, I typed back. Dad's finally going to be heard. Nora squeezed my shoulder. They won't know what hit them. That's the point, I said, remembering Dad's final words about justice and patience. They thought they were so clever, playing their little games. They never imagined Dad was playing a longer one. Another text came through, this time from Deacon. Last chance to back down, sis. Don't make us destroy you. I showed it to Nora, who snorted. They still think they're in control. Good, I said, gathering the files into my bag. Let them think that, for about 12 more hours. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, Dad would finally have his say. And this time, everyone would listen. Clara's conference room felt like a courtroom as everyone took their seats. Rory and Deacon sat together, matching smirks on their faces. Ingrid perched beside them, perfectly composed except for the slight tremor in her hands. Before we begin, Clara said, arranging papers on the table, I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being officially recorded. Of course it is, Deacon muttered, shooting me a look. Nora sat beside me, laptop open, ready to play our evidence. Under the table, she squeezed my hand. Now, Clara continued, Bethany has requested this meeting to present new evidence regarding her father's will and final wishes. Evidence? Rory scoffed. More like desperate attempts for attention. Actually, I said, nodding to Nora, I'll let Dad explain. The recording started playing through the conference room speakers. Dad's voice, clear and strong, filled the space. This is my final testimony, recorded with full mental capacity, witnessed by Dr. Marshall on June 15th. The condition I placed on Bethany's inheritance was never about the money. It was a test my sons have failed spectacularly. Rory's smirk vanished. Deacon reached for his phone, but Clara shook her head. All devices off, please, she said firmly. Dad's voice continued. The money in question, $174,000, was left to Bethany by her mother. Money that was systematically stolen through fraudulent investment schemes orchestrated by Ingrid with the knowing participation of both Rory and Deacon. This is ridiculous, Ingrid stood up. He was ill, delusional. I have copies of all relevant banking documents, Dad's voice cut through her protest. Transaction records, emails, everything showing how my sons used their sister's inheritance to fund their failed ventures. Nora started displaying documents on the wall screen, bank transfers, emails between Rory and Deacon discussing how to borrow from my account, screenshots of Ingrid's instructions on hiding the transactions. You can't prove any of this, Rory snarled. Actually, Clara interjected. Your father provided notarized copies of everything, including your signatures on the transfer authorizations. Deacon's face had gone pale. Dad gave us permission. Permission gained through deception, I said, playing another clip. Dad's voice again. They told me Bethany had agreed to invest in their projects. They forged her signatures. They intercepted my letters, returned them unopened, told me she wanted nothing to do with us. All while she was working double shifts at the hospital, thinking her college fund had been lost in the market crash. Ingrid's composure cracked. You ungrateful little— Mrs. Robert, Clara warned, remember the recording. I pulled out the stack of returned letters. Every single one, marked refused in your handwriting, Ingrid. Dad kept them all. So what? Rory stood up, looming over the table. It's our word against a dead man's recordings. And the bank records, Nora added, and the emails, and the witnesses. Witnesses? Deacon whispered. The conference room door opened. Jesse, the groundskeeper, walked in, followed by Dad's old investment broker and his former medical partner. Your father was very thorough, Clara said. He spent his final months building an airtight case. This is a setup, Rory shouted. No, I replied calmly. This is justice. Clara slid documents across the table. You have two options. Sign these papers releasing Bethany's inheritance and surrendering any claim to the cabin property, or face fraud charges. Your father was quite clear about his wishes. You can't be serious, Deacon pleaded. Oh, and one more thing, Nora clicked to a final screen. All those social media posts about Bethany's mental state, the edited videos, they've been reported as harassment, with evidence. Rory lunged across the table, but Jessie was faster, stepping between us. Sign the papers, Clara said firmly, or I submit everything to the district attorney. Your father left very specific instructions. Ingrid's perfectly manicured nails tapped the table. You've ruined everything, she hissed at me. No, I replied. You did that yourself. One by one, they signed. Rory's signature was an angry scrawl, Deacon's barely legible through his shaking hands. Ingrid refused to look at anyone. One final recording, I said as they stood to leave. Dad's voice, softer now. Bethany, my dear girl, if you're hearing this, you've done it. You've shown them what real strength looks like. The cabin is yours. It always was. Your mother would be proud. I know I am. Rory paused at the door. This isn't over. Actually, Clara held up the signed papers. It is. Any further contact will violate the agreement you just signed. After they left, Nora hugged me tight. You did it. Dad did it, I corrected. He just needed someone to finish the game. Clara gathered the documents, smiling. Your father once told me patience was your greatest strength. Now I see why. I touched the recorder one last time, remembering Dad's final squeeze of my hand, understanding now what he'd been trying to tell me. Sometimes justice needs a little patience, and sometimes it needs a daughter's love. The cabin keys felt heavier in my hand as I unlocked the door the next morning. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. For the first time in years, the house felt truly mine. A loud crash from upstairs shattered the peace. Hello, I called out, my heart racing. In here, Nora's voice responded. Sorry about the noise. I found her in Dad's study, surrounded by boxes and cleaning supplies. A fallen stack of books explained the crash. What are you doing? Helping you reclaim your space, she said, holding up a framed photo of Rory and Deacon. Unless you want to keep their smug faces on the wall? Definitely not. I grabbed a box and started collecting the photos, pausing at one of Dad and Ingrid on their wedding day. It's strange. I kept thinking getting justice would feel more satisfying. But I just feel tired and kind of sad for Dad. The doorbell rang before Nora could respond. Through the window, I saw Clara's car in the driveway. More papers to sign? Nora asked as I headed downstairs. But when I opened the door, Clara wasn't alone. A police officer stood beside her, looking grim. Bethany, Clara said quickly, don't panic, but there's been an incident. What kind of incident? Your brother Rory was caught trying to break into the cabin last night. The security system caught him. What security system? Clara smiled. The one your father had installed 3 months ago. He really did think of everything. The officer stepped forward. We have him in custody, but we need to know if you want to press charges. My first instinct was yes, make him pay for everything. But Dad's voice echoed in my head. Justice doesn't always mean punishment. What are my options? I asked. Given the restraining order already in place, Clara explained, we could pursue criminal charges or we could use this as leverage to ensure they never bother you again. I thought about Rory in jail, about more legal battles, more bitterness. Let's go with option 2. While Clara and the officer handled the paperwork, Nora and I continued clearing the study. Under a stack of magazines, we found an old photo album I'd never seen before. Look at this, Nora said, opening it carefully. The first page showed Mom and Dad standing in front of the cabin, much younger, paint on their clothes and keys in their hands. Their first day here. They looked so happy, I whispered. They still can be, a voice said from the doorway. Jesse stood there, tool belt around his waist. Well, your dad's memory at least. I've got some ideas for fixing this place up if you're interested. We spent the rest of the day planning renovations. Jesse knew exactly which walls could come down, which windows could be enlarged to let in more light. With each decision, the cabin felt less like a battlefield and more like home. My phone buzzed continuously with notifications. Deacon had apparently posted a lengthy apology video that was backfiring spectacularly as his followers connected the dots between his past posts and the truth. Should we watch it? Nora asked. No need, I said, deleting the notifications. Some things are better left in the past. As evening approached, Clara returned with final documents. It's done, she said. Rory's agreed to leave the state for a job opportunity that mysteriously opened up across the country. Mysteriously? Your father had some influential friends. One of them owed him a favor. She handed me an envelope. He also left this for you, said to give it to you once everything was settled. Inside was a single photograph, me as a baby, cradled in Mom's arms, Dad beaming beside us. On the back, in his handwriting, the cabin was always meant for you. Make new memories here. Love, Dad. What are you thinking? Nora asked, seeing my tears. I'm thinking Dad's study would make a great reading room, with big windows. Jesse nodded approvingly. We can start tomorrow if you'd like. Tomorrow, I agreed. But first, I walked through each room, touching walls that held decades of memories, both good and bad. In the kitchen, I found Dad's old coffee mug, still sitting where he'd left it. In the living room, Mom's reading chair waited patiently by the window. You okay? Nora called from upstairs. Getting there, I replied. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Ingrid. You'll regret this. I blocked the number without responding. Some people never learn, but their lessons weren't mine to teach anymore. Outside, the sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the cabin in warm golden light. Tomorrow would bring changes, renovations, new beginnings. But tonight, in this moment, I finally felt at peace. Dad had given me more than just a cabin and an inheritance. He'd given me back my history, my truth, and most importantly, my future. It was time to make it count. The final box of Dad's medical journals thudded onto the donation cart as Nora wheeled it toward her car. Through the study's new bay windows, morning sunlight streamed across freshly painted walls, warming the space that would soon become my reading room. Last one, she called over her shoulder. Unless you're still finding hidden treasures? I ran my hand along Dad's old desk, the only piece of furniture I'd kept. Actually, pulling open the bottom drawer, I retrieved the tape recorder. One final cassette remained inside, unmarked and unplayed. Should we? Nora asked, returning to the room. Before I could answer, gravel crunched in the driveway. Through the window, I saw Clara's car parking beside Nora's. "Perfect timing," I said, waving her in. Clara entered carrying a thick envelope. "The final paperwork from the court. Everything's official now." She paused, noticing the recorder. "Is that—" "The last tape," I nodded. "Found it this morning." "Well," she settled into one of the new reading chairs. "Seems appropriate we should all be here for it." My fingers trembled slightly as I pressed play. Static crackled, then cleared. "Beth," Dad's voice filled the room, stronger than in the previous recordings. "If you're listening to this, then everything's done. The truth is out. Justice served. But there's something else you need to know." I gripped the desk edge as he continued. "The money, the cabin, they were never the real inheritance. Your mother and I built this place with a dream that our child would understand the difference between wealth and worth. You proved you do." Footsteps on the porch made us all turn. Jesse stood in the doorway, tools in hand, ready for another day of renovation work. He froze, hearing Dad's voice. "Stay," I whispered. He nodded, leaning against the doorframe. "Your brothers," Dad's voice continued, "chose wealth, but you, my dear girl, chose worth. You stayed when it was hard, cared when it hurt, fought with dignity, not spite. That's your mother in you. That's your real inheritance." Tears blurred my vision as he spoke about Mom, about their dreams for the cabin, about the strength they'd hoped to pass on. "There's one last surprise," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Check behind the loose brick in the living room fireplace, the one with the small star carved in the corner." I looked at Jesse, who grinned. "Been wondering when you'd find that one." We moved to the living room, where Jesse pointed out the brick. Behind it lay a small metal box. "Your mother's?" Dad's voice explained as I opened it. "She left it for you, for when you were ready." Inside, I found Mom's wedding ring, a handwritten letter, and a key I didn't recognize. "The key opens a safety deposit box," Clara said softly. "Your mother set it up before she died, asked me to watch over it until the time was right." "How much more did you all know?" I asked, looking between Clara and Jesse. "Enough to know your father was right about you," Jesse replied. The tape crackled one final time. "Beth, the cabin is yours now, but more importantly, it's yours to share. Your mother always said a home is measured by the love it holds, not the walls that contain it. You understand that now. I couldn't be prouder." Static filled the room as the tape ended. Through tears, I saw Nora holding up her phone. "Deacon just posted his last video," she said. "He's leaving social media, says he needs to reassess his priorities." "Good for him," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. Clara handed me a pen. "Ready to sign the final papers?" As I signed, Jesse started measuring the fireplace for renovation. Nora scrolled through paint samples on her phone. The cabin hummed with possibility. "Oh," Clara said, pulling one last document from her briefcase. "Your father left instructions about the garden." "The garden?" "He said you'd know what to plant there. Something about your mother's favorites?" I smiled, remembering Mom's passion for wildflowers, how she taught me their names, their seasons, their stories. "Yellow roses," I said, "and purple irises." "I know a good landscaper," Jesse offered. "No," I replied. "I think I'll plant them myself." Standing in the doorway, I watched sunlight dance across the mountains. The same view Mom and Dad had fallen in love with, the same peace they'd wanted to pass on. My phone lay silent. No angry texts, no social media drama, no threats or manipulation, just quiet, just peace. "What now?" Nora asked, joining me. I held up Mom's ring, watching it catch the light. "Now we make new memories, better ones." "Together?" She smiled. "Together." Behind us, Jesse's hammer tapped against brick, Clara's papers rustled, and the cabin settled into its new rhythm. Not an ending, but a beginning. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. "A home is measured by the love it holds." Looking around at these people who'd helped me reclaim mine, I finally understood what he meant.